Anecdotes for success. Level up with truth, meaning, trade-offs, perspective.
Matt, we talk a lot about you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So I want to ask you right now, what's that statement mean to you? You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
It means a lot. Means a lot of different. I don't want to say a lot of different things, but it can go into a lot of different areas, and it's so important to understand. One of the things it means to me is any growth that you're going to have as a human being, and we don't have to be talking about business. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're going to grow as a person, and you should be, that should be one of your biggest desires. Like, you're put on here to do something, and whatever that is up to you, and circumstances may dictate it, and life may dictate it, and a lot of things are going to influence it. Where you're here for something. It's not to sit in a cubicle. It's not to play video games. It's not to take from other people so that it's to do something. And that's the beauty of life. For me, is everybody gets to, not everyone, unfortunately. In our world, we get to, for the most part, decide that. And that's a gift that we should all cherish every single day, but we don't, and myself included. But it means pushing yourself. And I don't care if it's to grow your business, to be a better father, to be a better husband, to be a better wife, to be a better student, to be a better athlete, to be a better musician, to be just a better you every single day. And I don't mean uncomfortable in the way of I did 3 push-ups. I mean 300 push-ups every day. And it is sad. We are so comfortable, all of us. We live in such a wonderful, world here for the most part, that we don't have the kind of problems, challenges that if you pick up any history book, most everyone in the world had. And I think it's far too common to feel that too many of us think that being uncomfortable is a problem. It's something that's to be done away with. It's something that should be, it's how could this be kind of thing. Life's not going right if I'm uncomfortable. The whole idea is for me to be comfortable at all times. And that couldn't be farther from the truth in terms of growth. So to me, it's all about making sure you put yourself in positions where you are uncomfortable so you can grow as a human being.
It's really how we grow and evolve. And I've had a couple conversations with people lately that makes me think sometimes the human experience is wasted on humans because I mean, they want to argue with me about so many things, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, nothing you're like, even this conversation right now, to get philosophical, doesn't matter 100 years from now. It matters to us. So everybody's worried about what somebody thinks, and everybody's worried about I might fail, and everybody's worried about what will the neighbors or my friends or family think. Who bleeping cares, right? Like,
Not me.
like, what if you're so used to being uncomfortable, it pushes your comfort zone? I mean, that's the whole theory behind it, right?
Whole point.
That 40 years from now, the things you're doing, your 40-year earlier younger self would have crawled into a corner or a safe space over, like, oh, I need help. But 40 years later, I mean, it's kind of the idea of how calluses develop on hands, or how muscles grow, or how emotional intelligence grows, because you do it and repeat it so much, it becomes, well, I'm going to use this phrase that I don't like to use, but I think it makes sense. It's the new normal.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love the analogy with weightlifting. You just kind of touched on that. It's the idea that I want to get stronger. I want to develop my biceps, which I don't, but let's say theoretically,
Well, that's why you never show them. I know they're big enough.
let's say I did. Well, the way I'm going to do it, it's obvious. I'm going to pick up weights that are too heavy for me, right? That make me uncomfortable. And guess what? The first time I do it, I might be able to do 1 rep. And then you look back in a month and you're doing 10 reps without a problem, and you're moving up to a higher rate, or a higher weight. I'm sorry. The only way to do it is to start out in discomfort, or you're going to run. I want to run, a 6-minute mile. Well, you think you're going to run a 6-minute mile by sitting on the couch for a month and resting and going, okay, now I'm going to be so rested when it's time to run that mile, I'm going to do it in 6 minutes? Of course not. Everyone knows that wouldn't work. But yet we want to develop our emotional intelligence, as you put it, or my finances and my financial knowledge by doing nothing. I just want it to happen. I want more free time, or I want whatever it is. I want to run a 6-minute mile. You have to get uncomfortable. And I've been saying this for years. The number of people I know, Paul, who are smarter than me, have all the tools in their toolkit to just be amazingly productive people, or amazing in all these areas, things that I envy, things that I look at and go, my God, I wish I had their intelligence. I wish I had their wherewithal. I wish I had, A, B, C, D, fill in the blank. And they're not accomplishing nearly what they could because they are terrified to get uncomfortable. In fact, I would make the argument now, the vast majority of people are much more interested in being taken care of than they are in growth. And that to me is a gross failure of society, of what could be happening out there, the number of things that could be improved upon, and the benefits we could have, and the personal successes people could have that are given up all in the name of don't make me uncomfortable. I don't want to be uncomfortable. It's a shame. It's a shame. And I find it, I see it everywhere, and it's sad. It's very sad.
You know what I think's when we look back, I think the great schism, I just like saying that word schism. It always made my middle schoolers laugh when we talked about the church. But the great split in society, like the final straw, I really feel is COVID. It's been 18 months. We go through a pandemic. I know people that are doing better than ever despite what's going on. And then I know people that still watch the news every day and they worry about being in contact with people, but they don't take care of themselves. And obviously anything can happen. Like you could, maybe we'll know at some point who it really affects and how. I don't want to get into all that, but that was like a trigger point for me personally. I was always successful but comfortable. And the 18 months since COVID, like I could bore the viewers with all the stuff I've accomplished, and it was a huge starting point for me. And I think at some point everybody has that trigger. I know you had that same trigger coming in and talking to my classes. It wasn't a pandemic, it was your own little personal pandemic in a sense. But how come some people don't see that still?
I'd love to know. I wonder that all the time as well. And right, without getting to the politics of COVID, which neither one of us are interested in, the point you're making is there are certain things that take place, and some people go, here I go, I'm taking control, I'm taking charge, this is my opportunity. And some people go, oh, woe is me, right? And whether it's COVID, or they lose their job, or their spouse leaves them, or they might develop a health issue, or a number of things. At the end of the day, it's still up to you, right? It's still your decision to decide what you're going to do with circumstances. And I feel like it's this people, the same type of, it comes down to mindset. All right. Are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to take the risk? Are you willing to put yourself out there? Or do you just want to sit in your house and and wait for someone to take care of you. And I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about life. I'm talking about the world around you. Is your mindset, I'm in charge. I got one shot at this thing. And you know what I find interesting, and this came up in a conversation I had with someone recently, and I went through it at a young age. I realized when I was relatively young that I was mortal because I had to have a heart surgery and that kind of thing, and it wasn't a situation where when I was going through it, and I know you know this to some degree, that it was like an emergency and they rushed me in or anything like that, but it was certainly an emotional thing, and it made me put a lot of things in perspective, right? Pillar number 4, where I went, oh my gosh, I got to kind of think about this. I had a baby on the way. I was married, it was like, okay, this whole world, this whole thing can end at any time for any of us. And because of that, I never treated my life the same. And it was one of the biggest blessings I ever had, was being put in a situation where I realized I don't get to live forever. And because of that, I wasn't willing to let other people dictate my life, where it was going, what my surroundings were going to be, what I could and couldn't accomplish. And that was one of the best things that ever happened. In this conversation I was having with another person who speaks very much like I do and has a lot of the same feelings about taking control, also went through a similar kind of thing young in his life, lost a lot of people, and went, oh my gosh, life doesn't go on forever. And looked at it the same way and said it was a blessing to see all these things. And I feel like there's an advantage to getting put in a position where you kind of realize, oh my, I'm mortal, and because of that, I better take charge. And it's just a hypothesis. I don't know, but that's how I feel.
So I use the word trigger. You use the word basically mortality. I think that's the same thing we're talking. Like, at what point does the switch flip where you say, what am I waiting for? Like, I don't even get it. Like, I thank the Lord that I don't act the same way when I was 18, or I have the same goals that when I was 30, or that now that I'm 49 and counting, that I just don't want to ride off to a sunset. Because we talked about that in our fire episode. There's really no sunset. It just, I think it's more of like someday it'll just be a blackout. So I mean, so just keep riding, because you don't know what's over the next horizon. Like, that's the fun of it. And that's what COVID helped me like finally figure out and have the courage to do. It was your condition, right? And I'm so jealous you have a head start on me. I could never tell you enough times how not lucky you are, but how jealous I am that you have a head start over me.
Yeah, but the head start came a little bit from luck, from
Right.
which most people wouldn't consider what I went through lucky, but I do in a lot of ways, and because it just tilted my view of how to look at things, and I try to pass that on to other people. Like, you've got to see it a different way. You've got to wake up that this idea that you're just, hey, I got my job, I'm going to work 40 hours and then I'm going to retire, and that's, then everything's going to be great. I don't know anybody like that. I don't have private conversations with anyone thus far, and I'm sure there's somebody out there, but I haven't, who said this whole thing, it was, like, I don't regret any of it. I love the fact that I took the shortcuts and didn't take any risks and gave up these opportunities and didn't do anything to really hang my hat on. It's I get Jeopardy every night at 7. I go out to dinner once a week and it's perfect. I don't know those people. Maybe they exist. I just don't happen to know them. But I doubt there's more of them than the others. So the question I always ask is, how do you get through to people who are interested or not interested in going, I want more, but I'm scared to put anything at risk. I'm scared to get uncomfortable. what do we do with those people? People that I see right on the edge. It's like I want to push them off the cliff.
I think it's learned. I was doing some reading the other day. This was actual reading because most of the time I just do listening through Audible. But I actually went the old school way. But it was reading on a computer, so I don't know if it counts. That children are the fastest and most curious learners on the planet. And then at some point, most of them, well, not most of them, all of them start having boundaries slash fences put around them and scenarios put around them and different things they are told that I think limit them instead of make them limitless. And that was what I was reading, a book called Limitless. And so that happens. If you're lucky, you grow up in an environment where that really doesn't happen for the most part. So you can go. But for most of us, we start putting our self-imposed limitations, and then it takes a trigger. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Like even a lot of friends I know, I just tell them I tell them what I'm up to, and they're just like, "Wow, you're so busy," or "I can't believe you have time for all that." And I'm thinking, well, that's the fun of it. And so maybe at some point they'll have a trigger that gets them going, or maybe, God bless elementary teachers, if they could just, at whatever cost, them and the parents keeping those boundaries away from kids, maybe we'll have more people that do that. I don't know.
No, it's interesting that you're saying that, and it makes sense that, I guess it's so we socialize people, right? And we socialize them to, okay, you're gonna go to school, which is a good thing, but we're gonna kind of put you in these boundaries, as you said, and the right thing to do if you want to be safe and you want to make sure you take care of yourself and you want to be responsible, then you're going to go to school and you're going to get good grades, and then you're going to go to college and you're going to get a good job, and that's the thing. That's success, right? That's what we push so many people into, and clearly not everyone goes that direction, but a lot of people do. But it's very encouraged. It's very much encouraged in our society, and probably all Western societies, that this is how we do things. And there's a lot good about a lot of that, but one of the downsides, one of the trade-offs, would be you put limits on yourself, right? You box yourself in.
Yeah, like really anybody in school under the age of 12 or 13, preteens, maybe even say 10, like if you find in a classroom that the kid's the one always building and destroying things, then let them pursue building Legos or gluing things together or building a ramp to ride their bike off of, whatever, because that's probably your engineers. Uh, if you have somebody that just goes out on the playground and tries to dig a hole deeper than anybody else, like then let them keep digging the hole. Like I don't understand. And then you have kids that try to make the goofiest sounds with whether it's paper or any type of thing they try to make into an instrument. Well, let them pursue that because they're probably going to be the entertainers. And I don't think anybody grows up and say my most memorable experience in elementary school was that day we had to sharpen all our pencils and circle all the bubbles inside the circle, because that's when I realized I want to make standardized tests for everybody else. That's what I want to do when I grow up. Like, and at the end of the day, you just your mark is almost left by how other people feel around you, and obviously not. I mean, there's going to be some that hate you, some that relish you, some that want you to mentor them, and who cares? But if we just let people pursue that, I really think, I'm no psychologist, but I think we'd be to a much better start come high school after all that.
Yeah, I was, as you're telling us, using those examples, I was thinking of a couple people I know who have young children, and their biggest concern is, how's the kid's hair look like, and is their shirt clean? And I'm like, I get around these people, and I think that's an 8-year-old kid. Let him or her run. Let them jump. Let them roll. Let them do what they do. And you can see the boundaries being built around them, right? Don't do that. Be clean. And then be safe. And like, nobody wants to see anybody get hurt. But life's full of risks. Life is inherently risky, and we take it, every one of us to some degree takes it all on every single day. And as someone who lives in the world I live in, I find nothing more risky than going to work for someone. This idea that getting a job and getting a good job is going to be your safety net, I find to be the opposite of the truth. Not that going and starting your own business and doing your own things doesn't carry risks, because of course it does. But at a certain point, it carries a lot fewer risks than hoping your boss doesn't come in a bad mood, or doesn't think a number of things, or the corporation's making decisions that they don't know you, they have no idea, they don't care about your work ethic. There's numbers that have to be met, so or there's cutbacks or whatever the case may be. This idea that the best way to mitigate your risk is to get that job and go to work 40 hours a week. I don't think it bears fruit in the end for many people. It does for some, but it doesn't for many others. And it also doesn't carry with it the necessary discomfort to grow, to be the kind of person you can be in most cases. That's where I get really passionate about it. Is, look, I don't care how much. It's not about the money. It's not about even the risk factor in many ways. It's, I got one shot at this thing, Paul, and I got to be the best I can be. And I'll never be perfect. I'll be a long way from it. But my gosh, if I'm not better in 5 years than I was today, and if I didn't think I was better today than I was 5 years ago, I couldn't sleep at night. The idea that I'm going to just kind of coast through till I can retire, and this is just the mat you see here is the mat that there is crazy to me. It's unconscionable. How do you say that word? You know what I'm saying?
Conscionable, yeah.
Thank you. I have to, in Paul, you're cut from the same cloth. It's like, you got to be better next year than you were this year. I mean, what more is out there? What other growth? It's not so you can put more money in your pocket to drive a car with a better logo on the front of it. I know that's not what it's about. It's about way more than that. It's about a lot different things than that. It's about being a better Paul. And a better Paul means you're a better dad, you're a better husband, and you're better to your friends and your family and your clients and your students and all those things. And that doesn't come from sitting in your house hoping that nothing bad happens.
It's awesome. And so I always show my students a TED Talk by Tim Urban. He has I think a blog called Wait But Why. And it was on procrastination. And I won't get into the whole talk. It's about 15 minutes. It's super funny. And afterwards, I tell the kids like the importance of it. He realized he put his life like every week as a block, and then he put like 85 blocks for 85 weeks of 85 years of life. I'm kind of confusing myself right now, but
my
it's not
showed me this a few weeks ago.
So you saw that?
I saw the block. He was like dead in the middle of, or I shouldn't have used the word dead. He was like beyond the middle of the block.
Right.
He brought it to my attention as if, whoa, like, look at where, and we're a similar age. So right. He's slightly older than I am. It was like, he wasn't telling me to wake up, and he wasn't saying he's not awake either. It was just kind of like perspective, right? So I'm sorry to interrupt, but keep that.
No, that's fine. So he talks about procrastination through a paper he wrote, and the kids laugh about it. He has like, there's this crazy monster in his mind, and then there's like his moral compass, and the crazy monster always come in and wants instant gratification. Like, I'll do in a paper, and then I just start watching YouTube and Google, and next thing you know, I'm on Google Maps zooming in and out from my house to see how far out I can go. Like, so that's what he taught, but he says and some people are super good at procrastinating because it's like their artificial deadline, and then they can hammer it out, whether it's pulling an all-nighter or whatever, and getting it done. Like, that's kind of how they make themselves uncomfortable, and they just get through it. Okay. But the big things in life, like starting that business or taking that trip to Europe, or going back to school, anything where you can say, someday I'll do this, getting in shape, you're going to run out of some days. And so why not start now? And I think going back to our theme, and it's very powerful, if you get comfortable just being uncomfortable, there's no end to this race until you're not participating anymore. So even if you fail, right, first attempt in learning, like we always say, you just go on to the next thing. Like, no one's keeping score. No one cares. Well, the only time they keep score is what I'm learning through you, which I'm starting to get is, oh, you're lucky. But I wasn't lucky 18 months
That's
ago.
resentment.
Yeah, and I get that. I haven't even come close to probably experiencing on the level you're get, but I almost called you the other day because I smiled ear to ear when someone told me that. I'm like, yeah, all those 5 a.m. mornings. Yeah, I'm lucky.
It's nice. It's nice to hear when you have the proper mindset, isn't it?
It really is. And so our mindset's our path. And like procrastination's okay, but it doesn't help you with the big things that it doesn't help you with getting uncomfortable because those are deadlines. Anybody can step up and answer a deadline. But the big things, the truth, the meaning, the trade-offs, the perspective, and all we do comes from knowing you have to get uncomfortable to accomplish those things. So tell me your final words. You're
Yeah.
you're better at closing this thing out than
No,
me, and then we'll
no,
be
no.
out.
What you're saying there's it's perfect. It's well said. You know, the only thing I would, I guess, say is, in addition, is the discomfort is the growth. That anxiety you feel, some of those sleepless nights, that's the growth. And you know, as someone who took on things at a certain point and got uncomfortable, the same things that made me uncomfortable, Paul, 20 years ago don't make me uncomfortable anymore, right? The things that made me uncomfortable 10 years ago don't make me uncomfortable anymore. Certainly not to the same degree. They might. Now I take on other things. It doesn't mean I'm not uncomfortable anymore. I'm now, and you don't even know about this one yet. I'll tell you relatively soon, but I'm making myself uncomfortable in a new way right now. And a couple nights ago, I was just thrashing and tossing and turning and going, what about this? What about that? What about, and I'm sure there's people who would be in my personal situation and go, why would you even do it? You don't need to do this stuff. And my retort to that, to them, and to my own mind is, yes, you do. How are you going to be any better? How are you going to grow if you don't do it? If you're comfortable lifting the 20-pound weight, you better pick up the 25-pound weight next, because I need to always push myself. It's the only way I can continue to be the best person I want to be. And I will never, ever intentionally go to my grave knowing that I didn't push myself to be the best I could be. And that's all I want anybody else. That's what I want for everyone. I truly do. That's what I want for everyone. So that's how I would leave it on my end.
So it's actually all the stuff we're talking about. It's not even a status or a wealth symbol. It's actually what we're built to do. It's fun. And the whole point of being comfortable, being uncomfortable is so you don't experience, you might experience regret someday, but you don't want to really experience much regret. That's the whole point of what we're talking about.
I don't want to experience regret and I didn't try this. I didn't do it because, like you said, the word failure doesn't really even come into play. It's like, oh, it didn't work this time. It's like the first time I dove in a pool, right? I'm sure I belly flopped. It wasn't like, okay, well, Matt can't dive. He's a failure. It's like, no, do it again. And then do it again. And then do it again, right? And then eventually, guess what? I can dive. Failures in your mind, it's usually only in your mind. So if you're looking at it the right way, which is, it's not failure, it's just I didn't get it that time. I'll keep improving until I get it. It doesn't come into play. It's not a word. Frankly, it's not a word that enters my mind unless someone brings it up, because I don't believe in it. It's misguided. It's really misguided.
Yeah. Get comfortable being uncomfortable and get better. Hey,
Absolutely.
until next time, we'll see you.
All right, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah, bye.